how many people were arrested at the Notting Hill Carnival this year?
So we've had up to 349 arrests so far. This is quite serious, right? So we've had 349 people arrested and 8 people stabbed. 1 person is in a critical condition in hospital. We don't know...
At the time of filming.
At the time of filming, of course. We don't know how they'll be when this airs. And I think the public need to have some context here. Glastonbury sees about 210,000 people. There's 36 arrests, 0 stabbings. We had the riots that broke out across the country. Multiple arrests, 0 stabbings, 0 people fighting for their lives. There is not a single statement from any political leader, Yvette Cooper, Keir Starmer, Sadiq Khan, anyone of any authority coming out and condemning this cesspit of death, violence and destruction that takes place every single year and seems to progressively get worse.
Well, OK, so this is the same weekend as Manchester Gay Pride, and I think it's interesting to compare the two because both of them are on quite narrow streets or whatever. So a decision was taken in Manchester to actually cordon off the whole area, and then revellers or partygoers pay to go to the event, and that pays for the policing. Now, it's amazing, isn't it, that we would do that for Manchester Gay Pride, but there's never been any suggestion of doing it for Notting Hill Carnival.
No, well, because, of course, it will just be called racist, won't it? Yes. It'll just be called racist. And that's the reality. This is why people are so fed up in this country of this two-tiered justice and policing system we've got in place. Because if this was St George's Day, you know you'd have all these leaders coming out and condemning it, calling these people racist, calling them thugs, far right, nothing of the sort. And I think it just gets really into the teeth of British people when they see this happen. It really does.
Yeah. I mean, Pete, it's the reality is with the Notting Hill Carnival. And I was press secretary one year, and I guarantee it's a complete shambles. And in fact, actually, I'll tell you the truth. I was press secretary because I worked for Westminster City Council, who had some involvement with it. Then the Greater London Authority had some involvement with it. Then there was an independent charity or foundation or whatever that had some involvement. The reality is there is no central administration for this organisation. No. And I found that out to my detriment when I was press secretary.
I've got to say, that has always staggered me. Given the sheer size of it, I think it's technically one of the biggest street festivals in the world. I'm pretty sure that's right. And I just want to pick up on this incident of the stabbing. This one is particularly horrific. It's a 27-year-old mother who was stabbed in front of her child.
Wow.
That has happened on the streets of London. And as Alex really rightly says, where is the outrage over this? I tell you where it is. It's been shuffled under the carpet. If you looked at Sadiq Khan's posts, particularly at the start of the festival, it was, isn't this wonderful? It's a celebration of diversity and culture, while you have people with knives wandering around. At what point do we have to say this is a dereliction of duty, and people like Sadiq Khan are actively putting these communities and these rebels in danger?
But Pete, this is exactly the same thing as we've heard time and time again. Sadiq Khan didn't want to do anything about stop and search, and the end result was young black men were being killed. I mean, the reality is, you go out to Hampshire and there's no knife crime epidemic amongst middle-class white kids. And so when you don't do stop and search, when you don't police these events, the victims are the very people that you're seeking to protect from racism.
How many times do I make this point? Where are all the celebrities? Where are all these community leaders? Where are the Black Lives Matter activists that are supposed to care about black lives that seem to be dropping in the streets of London every other day?
Quite right.
They only seem to care, this might be a controversial statement, when it comes to a white man writing a cheque. That seems to be Black Lives Matter. And I'll tell you now, for me, it has been one of the biggest cons ever, because it has been nothing but a grift by people. And I think we're starting to see that really come through at things like the Carnival, because, I mean, you could set your watch by this argument and this debate. Every single year we talk about it. And this, like we say, if this was at a football match or something like that, it would have had a huge condemnation. It would have been all over the press. And I wonder how many times we'll hear these figures actually repeated in the mainstream media.
I mean, no, do you know, James, I know that you're relatively supportive of this, but is there a fear in government of properly policing the Notting Hill Carnival or doing something like shutting the streets in the same way as Manchester Pride because of fears of allegations of racism?
I honestly don't think so. I think there was far too many acts of criminality and far too many arrests. I think everybody, from whatever political background they come from, should condemn it. It's an incredible thing, the Notting Hill Carnival. I speak as a Londoner, someone who's lived all my life in this city. There is nothing quite like it. It's a free event, right? 1 million people turn up. So you're talking about a very, very small minority of people who engage in bad and downright criminal behaviour. Well, it is a very small, but look, 350 arrests out of 1 million people. If that's not a small percentage, Pete, then what is?
Sorry, just 1 second. The question you then have to answer is how many bad apples and small incidents do you have to have before you do something? I hear this argument from commentators all the time. It's just a one-off.
If you let me finish, it wasn't I said nothing should be done. done. What I was pointing out, it is quite a small amount of people, and you said it wasn't, and you've been proven wrong. The point is, what can you do about it? What you can, as you say, start charging for it.
James.
Hang on. Let James finish, because I'll tell you what. There was a suggestion about moving it to Hyde Park, because one of the things that the police has said, and once again, I go back to Manchester Gay Pride, one thing that the police have said is that it is quite difficult to make it a success because of the streets it's on. Now, that was the issue in Manchester, and they dealt with it by putting barriers up. The other thing is, and I'm not a great expert on London, you're a Londoner, I'm not, but my understanding is that this is no longer the heart of the Caribbean community, Notting Hill. So actually, does it have to remain in Notting Hill?
Well, I think, look, it's not. I'm not from Notting Hill, and neither can I really speak for the Caribbean community. But the Notting Hill Carnival, as its name suggests, is in Notting Hill. Charging for it or changing where it was hosted to Hyde Park, I'm sure would bring security benefits, but it would fundamentally change the nature of the carnival. Where I accept you is that you've laid down a challenge, and I think it's been rightly criticised by people over the last couple of days for the criminality that's been involved. You've rightly laid down a challenge that should be met in future years by the Mayor to lay out a policing plan that they feel can start bringing down these numbers, because it's not the first year it's happened, I accept. But should you do that at the cost of moving it or charging for it? I don't think.
But Alex, right, let's just go to the basics of this, right? And once again, I return to this because I was press officer for it. You know, there's no clear governance of this of this thing. I mean, Westminster City Council would like to run it, but they don't. The Mayor of London would like to run it, but he doesn't. Then there's the Notting Hill Carnival Committee who say they run it. The police have got some involvement, the fire service from a safety point of view. And actually, from start to finish, it's a disorganised shambles. Now, that means that it has some energy and vibrancy, but it also makes it frigging dangerous.
Yeah, and it wouldn't happen anywhere else. And I wonder why no one wants to govern it, because they would possibly be held accountable for all of these offences that are going and taking place every year. I mean, let's go back to this point about this being a minority of people. Yeah, there was a minority of people rioting. What did Keir Starmer do? He opened up the courts. He fast-tracked people through the system. Right? We're talking about 53 emergency workers being attacked. This is the same statement that Keir Starmer was making about people who were violent against the police during the riots. We have to have a situation in this country where systematically police treat everyone the same way. And when it comes to governance, absolutely, there needs to be someone accountable.
But the difference between the Notting Hill Carnival and the far-right thugs is the far-right thugs are enemies of the North London Labour elite, whereas the Notting Hill Carnival is not.
Yes, you just nailed it, Andre, isn't it? This is all about who are the voters, who am I talking to, who is the uni party, so to speak, of people who I want to win their votes over in London and keep them on my side. And I think it's an absolute disgrace. I would shut it down if it was me. I would shut it down, move it to Hyde Park, do something sensible. And if you have to upset a few people, so be it.
Alex. Look at James's face. Look at James's face.
I'm all about saving lives.
I agree with him.
I'll tell you what we've got to be saving lives here.
I'll tell you what we'll do. As you've said to James McGrory, cancel the Notting Hill Carnival to save lives. He's about to explode. So why don't we just go to the question, get the answer and move on? Because otherwise McGrory was going to need to be sedated, and nobody wants that. Okay.
Not again.
So how many arrests took place at the Notting Hill Carnival?
So far, 349.
Is absolutely right. Okay, James, and breathe.
No, that's a new topic. New topic, new me.
Okay. The Church of England Bishop for Prisons has said Keir Starmer should stop jailing whom?
I'll be honest with you, I didn't know there was a bishop for prisons, so every day is a school day. Is it the rioters?
It actually isn't the rioters.
Wait, it's the keyboard warriors,
Keyboard warriors.
Yeah, so basically what this a vicar gone rogue by the looks of it for the Church of England, a rather woke organisation right now. So how long is they going to last as a bishop? I'll be interested to see.
Pete, I thought the answer would be the Bishop for Prisons has said that we should stop jailing whom? Everyone.
Yeah. I think that wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, that's right.
That genuinely wouldn't surprise me. But what they've argued is that there should be more kind of community-based sentences to get people who have these kind of views. And I think there are rightly some abhorrent views that we've seen posted over social media, you know, like setting fire to mosques and all the rest of it. But I actually think there is something to this about getting people involved in the community, but from both perspectives. I mean, we do have to talk about the kind of ghettoisation of certain communities in certain cities and all the rest of it. But again, my problem with this is, I think, and I know a lot of people won't like this, the Church of England only gets to say on politics, in my opinion, when it ponies up some tax.
Yes,
that is my thing. I'm sorry. They can say all the nice things they like, but I don't take them seriously, so you start paying into the system.
I love when they go, I wouldn't mind paying a bit of extra tax for better public services. Well, pay some.
them.
They get on with it, do it.
Yeah.
Do it. It reminds me very much, McGrory, of when I worked in local government, we did a 4% tax cut, but we made it optional. Because the Lib Dems were going, you can't cut taxes, it's disgraceful. Well, all right, we'll make an optional tax cut. You can opt out. Do you know what? There are actually 8 people who opted out. None of them were Lib Dems.
Not the Lib Dem councillors themselves.
The Lib Dem councillors didn't opt out.
They missed the trick there.
I mean, just to kind of bash the Church of England a little bit, it's one of my favourite pastimes. They have an £8.7 billion endowment, and last year they made £1 billion just out of the properties alone. And they're not ponying up any cash, but yet feel the need to give me a lecture on how I'm a bad person because I think maybe controlling immigration is a good thing. I'm sorry, no.
I'll tell you what, Pete, I know that you used something that I told you because my favourite fact about the Church of England is Lambeth Palace and the Archbishop of Canterbury's personal library that cost £27 million. And I remember saying this to a bishop. I went, how's immigrants in that? And he went, he's got a lot of books. Oh, has he? 27 million quid for a personal library. I mean, what's he got in there? Gold-plated copies of Harry Potter.
But to be fair, I will give this vicar, the bishop, the credit that they have rather put their head above the parapet. Like I said, I don't know how long they're going to stay in their position, given the political persuasion.
Hard to get rid of the clergy, if I'm being honest.
That's true. He will rid me of this terrible bishop.
I mean, I've got to be honest with you. I know this is awful and people are going to disagree with me, but being the Church of England vicar is the ultimate DOS, isn't it?
Absolutely
I mean, my dad lives next door to a rector, and basically all he ever did was like 2 masses per week, and he just spent the rest of his time in his garden, and he got a house, a salary, and all that, like, car and everything. It was well good.
I mean, the thing I think about the clergy and church and Christianity and John, it just seems to be getting so woke.
Yeah.
I mean, last week we had a question as to what are they churches calling themselves now? And I think the answer was community.
I don't know. You weren't here for this one. We had a question where the Church of England was debating the pronouns of God.
Oh, unbelievable!
Interesting.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, stop
What
telling
did they
people
conclude?
off from a religion which is dying.
I didn't read that far into the article.
According to Alan Partridge, God is a gas.
Not a greenhouse one, I hope. We're getting rid of that next.
But again, I don't want
God
to
is
be
the ozone layer.
Again, I don't want to be disparaging to Christians and followers of the Church of England and all the rest of it. What I'm doing is attacking the institution of the Church of England itself. And I think that is what needs real criticism. And from the people I know that do actually go to church quite a lot, they're just as infuriated with a lot of this stuff as people like myself who aren't that religious, and you should be thankful for that. I know a lot of people are.
That's what damage you do to the church.
Can I tell you what I've got? I've got both the bronze and silver medal in the Guild of St. Stephen of the Catholic Church.
What does that say?
That's a good level. No, I'm not going to melt it down for scrap. Get out of it. Get out of it. OK, so I think Pete's given you the answer.
Well, very helpfully, yes. Is it keyboard warriors?
It is keyboard warriors that are supposed to be not going to prison, according to the Bishop for Prisons. Well done. OK, so on to Pete. OK, how much will Labour's amnesty for 44,000 illegal immigrants cost the taxpayer?
Oh, I really don't want to say this figure out loud, if I'm being brutally honest. It's absolutely staggering. But one thing I will say before I start...
Pete, hang on a second. Is that a notepad?
I have to make notes. I'm an old man. Leave me alone.
But how did you know
You got notes as well.
I haven't got anything. What are you talking about,
You
mate?
showed it to the camera.
But Pete, how did you know what the questions were?
I call it psychic intent.
Psychiatric.
Yeah.
OK, Pete, the other thing is, right, you say you're getting old. You're actually not old, are you?
No, I'm not. I'm 33.
33? That paper round was bad.
You know what the North of England's
Just for contrast, I am also 33.
Yeah, see, this is literally what happens. See, this is what happens when you stick to your principles. You don't sell out to the full.
I'll tell you,
That's what happens if you do stick to the Tory principles, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's true.
Say what? Somebody's been going to MAC Cosmetics since about 8. So you two are the same age?
Yeah.
We're actually related.
Are we?
No, we're not.
There's some elements of the genetics that are different, I would suggest. But OK, so 44,000 illegal immigrants.
Yeah.
This idea of this amnesty. The problem is, Blair did exactly the same thing. And you know what? Maybe it made sense from an administrative point of view, but all that happened was everybody phoned their cousins in Syria and Eritrea and said, I've been now allowed to stay, and so just more and more people came.
Oh, yeah, 100%. So if there were 63,000 out of all of the illegal immigrants here that were earmarked to be deported, the Home Office now said that's not going to happen. It was the right to return or something like that was the policy overall, and it included the Rwanda scheme, but there was also other bits to it as well. So they've scrapped that because they're thinking they've saved $7 billion. 7 billion. I'm like, well, that's a rather small drop in the ocean considering to what we've actually got to deal with. And, you know, it's just absolutely ridiculous because, again, everything that many of us have been saying when it comes to the problems of illegal immigration, such as stresses on housing, healthcare, local authorities, which will probably be crumbled by the Labour government here right now, have all been proven to be true in an economic assessment that came out alongside the Home Secretary's report. So everything we've been saying, everything that people have been feeling on the street and feeling in their communities has been proven to be 100% accurate. And what these people have been made to feel is to be gaslit and be told that they're racist and you shouldn't question this stuff. This is a huge problem, not just in terms of the actual policy, but in terms of how it's been dealt with by the kind of lefty loving with the refugees welcome and signs and all the rest of those kind of people. And I'm like, we're now dealing with the consequences.
I'll tell you one thing, right? Refugees welcome. When Nagorno-Karabakh was attacked by Azerbaijan, I know this sounds obscure, there was a real concern that Armenians were going to be victims of a genocide. Yeah. Had that happened, Britain would not have been able to take genuine refugees on the basis that we've got so many phonies from Albania. And so if there were to be a genuine refugee crisis in Europe, I mean, remember, very few refugees from Ukraine wanted to come to Britain. And in fact, Azerbaijan, to be fair, did not commit the genocide that people had expected. But had either Russia or Azerbaijan committed a genocide, Britain would not have been able to help refugees because of people from Albania.
Yeah, and we also don't have safe legal routes to get into the country as of today. That's how it is, unless we literally fly a plane out there, pick them up, which we should do in some cases. Ukraine's a perfect example of that. But, you know, it's a stark contrast to how Tony Blair used to deal with illegal immigrants. Over the course of his reign, him and Blair combined, they deported over half a million illegal immigrants. We've now got a Labour Party that's deporting zero. Zero.
Well, I tell you what's even worse. 70,000 people are now able to claim full access to the welfare system.
Correct.
Who are technically still within the asylum system at the minute. I think that's staggering. Yeah. At the same time, the Labour Party have taken away winter fuel allowances. They've given full welfare benefits to people who many of us, I don't think, seem to have a right to be here.
James, look, I don't think you support illegal immigration, but why do we get things so badly wrong?
I'm afraid it's years of catastrophic mismanagement from all political parties of all colours.
Yeah.
You know, you've just had 14 years of Conservative rule. They talked a very tough game.
No. Including in that. Stop, everyone. Right. So, in that 14 years of Conservative, quote-unquote Conservative rule, how long were you in Downing Street as a Liberal Democrat?
Just a 5.
Just a full 5?
Just a full 5.
So of those 14 years of Conservative failure, 5 of them were not just them in coalition with the Lib Dems, but in coalition with literally you, not you a party, you the person.
I did work in Downing Street, that fellow,
It's Nick Clegg. He says, I'd like to help James by making that much money at Facebook. I no longer care. But actually...
The point I made was that it's mismanagement of the system by political parties of all colours, including the Liberal Democrats. We didn't have the system under control. I would argue at the end of the previous Labour administration they didn't have it under control, and the Tories that have just been in certainly didn't have it under control.
You must have had. Hang on a second. You must have. So look. You were the press secretary to Nick Clegg, so it's important to understand that you weren't the Home Secretary, even though you worked in Downing Street. But there must have been discussions amongst the team when he was Deputy Prime Minister about immigration. What was the view? Just that the Home Office is a shambles?
Well, look, we're in danger here of conflating quite a few different things. Okay. There's the backlog in the asylum cases, which actually the government has made a little bit of progress on. Whether you like some of the decisions they've come to or not is a different kettle of fish.
Amnesty.
Then there's illegal immigration, and actually,
sorry, hang on. You can definitely get rid of the backlog of illegal immigrants if you make them all legal. Yeah. Just go, it's legal now. That is very much the Dutch approach to criminality. Whenever they've got a problem, just legalise it.
Look, you make behind your joke. You make a serious point. There is this backlog now, which does affect. There's the flow and what you've already got. Now we have problems controlling the flow because so much attention is and resource is diverted on the stock that we already have. Now to get rid of the backlog, right? You aren't just just going to be able to magic up billions of pounds to deport the amount of people I'd imagine you guys would like to do. So that's then going to require some tough decisions. If you manage to get that into a better state of affairs, I would argue to have a much better chance of dealing adequately with the flow. And the big problem at the moment, the things that people are most exercised about, is probably legal migration.
Well, let me just stay with you, James, because I've got a theory on this, right? In Datchet, near where I live, there was a hotel, and, you know, the good lads who own the hotel, by the way, but the hotel was going bust as a result of COVID, so they've had to lease it to illegal migrants, the Home Office. Now, there was a big debate as to why these migrants were filming kids playing in the park, and people were saying that they were perverts or whatever. I actually don't believe that. I think part of the problem is people get these smartphones and go, look at where they've put me up. This is absolutely fantastic. And then WhatsApp that to their entire family in Somalia, and everyone goes, hey, this ain't half bad. Yeah. Pay the people smuggler 12 grand, and you end up in a 4-star hotel living it up in Windsor.
I mean, look, again, we're in danger of conflating asylum, illegal immigration and legal migration. Like, the biggest increase in numbers by far recently has been in legal migration. People were told in 2016 after Brexit that immigration would come down massively. It has, in fact, doubled.
Yes.
Right? Now, no wonder people have got the hump, and no wonder people feel that their promises were made that haven't been kept. But the biggest driver of numbers in this country, we're just talking about it from an overall numbers perspective, has been legal migration. Now, the changes that the last Conservative government brought in at the end, with the changes to family visas and like, do seem to have put the numbers down a little bit. Yeah. But if you want substantial reduction in the overall numbers, and I'm talking asylum, illegal immigration and legal migration here, by far the biggest group in there is legal migration. Yeah. Then we have to have a very serious conversation as a country about, well, do we want fewer legal migrants? That probably means fewer doctors, fewer nurses, fewer people coming over to pick fruit, fewer people in the hospitality industry, fewer family members, whatever it might be. But there's going to then be a knock-on effect in our economy, in the price we pay for things, in our public services.
I think
let's have that debate.
We are going to move on, but I think that you, James, potentially may win the quiz when I announce the results, because got the ump. That's the first time. That's the first time that phrase has been.
And I'm not even from the north.
North London.
Yeah, North London. For sure. Yeah,
that's right.
It's as north as you go.
Yeah. I've been to Watford.
The furthest north you've ever been is the North Circuit.
Au contraire, my mother is from Yorkshire.
Oh, is she?
She's from Hebden Bridge.
It's two guys from Lancashire.
Hebden Bridge.
It's two guys from Lancashire. That's not really helping the situation.
Right on the Lancs border. She sports Burnley. It's in Lancashire.
No, what we've discovered is Pete Barnes Senior is the president of Oral Rugby Club.
Yeah.
How Wigan is that? He worked at Heinz and is the president of Oral Rugby Club.
And I run around sounding like this.
just literally every possible stereotype the man has managed to tick. Okay. Oh God, Pete, I hate myself for this. How much has 44,000 illegal migrants amnesty cost us?
It's cost a whopping £18 billion.
18,000 million pounds is correct. Okay, on to Alex. Depressing. Okay, on to Alex. What percentage of women are estimated to be single and childless by 2030?
Yeah, this is a massive epidemic in our society. I know we got people like Elon Musk talk about this all the time, right? Where they say there's not enough people having kids.
He's doing his bit.
He's doing his bit, absolutely. There's a few people I know are doing their bit as well. But most people actually aren't having children anymore. And we can attribute that to so many different things. One of the most important things is the cost of living.
Yes.
It's so expensive to have a child. You talk about nursery fees, you talk about schooling, clothes, food, all these things that people can't even afford to get a home anymore. So, of course, this is going to be a staggering figure. And I believe the number is around 45%.
Can I be ultra right wing for a moment?
Please.
You know, because normally I'm a bit of a...
It's never stopped you.
Normally I'm a bit of a softie. I have to point out, with the falling population, since 1969 there have been 10 million abortions in the United Kingdom.
That's right.
And we have brought in 8 million people to fill the gap, officially, the gap of the number of people in the workforce.
This is exactly the debate we need to be having. Do you want less immigration? Yes. Okay. Have more children. Encourage your kids to have more kids. Pass your wealth down a little bit to your children so they can have it. Don't hoard it all. Give it to... I mean, I know that's an unpopular thing to say, but I think actually if you want to have a more English society in the future and you want to retain the culture, you have to start having children.
Now, McGrory, I don't think there's many people who on a Saturday night quiz show have quoted statistics about abortion, have they?
Certainly one that's supposed to be light-hearted.
Oh, you old softy, you old softy.
Well, are you hoping to do your bit to get people in the mood on a Saturday night?
Yeah, that's right. What we need to do is we do need to say to people there is a shortage of population. So come on, ladies.
So after you finish watching this show, take your nearest and dearest.
No, you could do it during whilst looking at Pete on the TV. Well, I know it's attractive. That's why I said it. It's Mrs. Barnes. She said while she doesn't like to think about it, she is happy for people to sleep with each other whilst looking at you.
Maybe don't. This is a personal preference, but
Is she doing that while
let's
watching
leave
you
my
on
mother
TV?
out of this. It's a phrase I didn't think I'd say out loud if I was in EastEnders.
A girl walked up to me once, I'm not joking, and she said, when my partner and I go to bed, he does impersonations of you during the act. I'm like, what?
That's amazing.
And then I later discovered who it was.
Oh my God.
Oh, my word.
So to the lady out there whose partner impersonates me during sex, I just want to say, you must be really loving it.
I heard it was Boris Johnson, but I'm not going to say that.
Well, just to bring it back to the quiz.
No, we're talking about
We're
trying to get the bird up here.
I'm trying to agree with you, which is really difficult for me at the minute. But you're right. We should have a major focus on things such as family care, education, but the major factor is housing.
Yeah.
And it's been shown after report after report after report. I think it's Miriam Cates in the Tories has really led the way. Miriam, has really led the way on this issue, and she's really trying to get it front and centre. And it's quite interesting how a lot of people have been kind of pushing back against it because I don't see what the problem is about people wanting to start a family, but the bigger one is actually people expand their families so they can just about get on the property ladder, but they can't get a second bedroom or a third for other children.
Let's just be clear about something. This new plan to build more houses, which we have to do, there's just no doubt we have to do it. Well, they're saying 40% social housing. Let's make the mathematics really simple and just pretend it's not 60-40, but 50-50, which it almost is. That means if you want to buy a 4-bedroom house, you've got to pay for 2 and give a second one to somebody who is more in need. Now, the reality is the people who are most in need are migrant families who are homeless when they come to the UK. So you have to buy 2 houses.
Well, there used to be a policy the Tories were putting forward. They said if you were British citizen, you would get priority. That's been scrapped.
Yeah.
I also believe they're going to scrap a proposed law that stopped potential criminalised terrorists from getting housing. So you might find yourself in a position where you, as someone who needs a social home, are behind a non-British terrorist.
No. What you could actually find, that the reason why your house costs 600 grand rather than 300 grand is because you are buying a house for somebody who is literally a member of the Islamic State to live next door to you.
Correct.
For free.
That's insane. I mean, people really need to.
It's an extreme example.
It's an extreme example, but I bet
it's not going to happen that often.
No, but I bet you it will happen. And one time is too many times. I've
got to be honest with you, I was convinced Shamima was going to get a 5-bedroom.
So was I, actually.
Yeah,
I thought she was coming back.
Well, the thing I don't understand is, political parties could actually use this to advantage. If they wanted to be really self-centered about it, there is a huge voter demographic here that realistically, I actually think Keir Starmer swooped up quite a big proportion of them, and it was what was known as Stevenage woman, and it was a woman who is
Stevenage woman.
Yeah, so basically, the way that a lot of us kind of look at
woman.
when we look at voter trends, the way we look at voter trends is we create these kind of archetypes. So Blair had Mondale man, Boris had
Worcester
woman, Worcester man, but the one in the last general election was Stevenage woman, and it was a woman who is concerned about public services, but concerned about crime, but also concerned about housing and the leaving a better society for her children. And there was a major factor, and the Labour Party tapped into that rather brilliantly by keep saying change. They didn't say what that change was, but
But we've seen what it is now. Yeah.
But this is what I'm saying is the Tories can blank onto this.
It's Stevenage woman. She said that.
How many kids does she have?
She said it's better studying Stevenage woman than Lindo man. He's been dead for about 5,000 years. Okay, so what percentage do we expect to be childless by 2030?
45%.
It is 45%. That's absolutely right. Now, I'm going to go for a bonus point here.
Where are the buzzers?
You just have to say the question. The answer first. Okay. It was the Edinburgh Festival last week, and Bobby Davro did his return tour, having had a stroke and lost his wife. He nursed his wife. He had a horrendous time, and presumably the stroke was as a result of the stress. However, unbelievably, He claimed in the Edinburgh Festival that he dislocated his shoulder doing what? Does anyone know?
I think I can have a good guess.
You were here for it. You were here for it.
Was it scrapping with you on the studio floor by any chance, Andre?
So the correct answer is that Bobby Davro never told us at the time, but he claimed in the Edinburgh Festival that he dislocated his shoulder wrestling me on this show. Now, I have to say, for those of you who are more recent additions to our viewers and listeners, it did get a bit raucous.
It did. I think it was a Christmas, near a Christmas sort of time
I'm going to say it had great like Turkish Parliament vibes. Like big
I think the moment HR got concerned was when Lord Monckton dry humped a rabbit. That was a dreadful moment. But anyway, Alex gets the bonus point because the correct answer is that Bobby Davro claimed he dislocated his shoulder wrestling me on That Was the Woke That Was. Anyway, on to James. Who has Jeremy Clarkson banned from his pub?
Keir Starmer.
Hey!
I'm strong on my pub questions. I don't know about the Church of England, but I do know about my pubs. I mean, it did seem to me that this was an accident waiting to happen. If you're planning a pub visit for a politician, and God knows if you work for a politician, right, you've done a pub visit, you've done a few, right? Surely the one thing you've got to do, ring up the landlord, get a sense of how the land lies.
Exactly.
How's he vote? If he's hardcore against you, and also you didn't have to do that much research, this landlord's Jeremy Clarkson.
He did a Times radio interview about it.
I do want to know one thing. How many pints could Nick Clegg sink without being sick?
Oh, quite a few.
Really?
Well, yeah, he could tuck it away, although he would prefer a white wine. But obviously, if you're doing a photo shoot, you had to have a pint.
Sorry, just to be clear, stop everyone. So, the leader of the Liberal Democrats lied.
Shocked, surprisingly, drink of choice was a chilled white wine. That is shocking.
Nobody's surprised.
That is shocking.
Sorry. So his drink of choice was white wine, but you, as his media advisor, advised him to have a pint of best
if you go for a pub visit, you cannot have a glass of white wine. Visually, it just doesn't work. You could be having a water. So some of these dry French whites.
My favourite
dry French whites.
my favourite ever pub visit is always the American president, whoever it is, at the Guinness brewery. Because you can see they absolutely hate the stuff. Barack Obama almost vomited. He was worse than Ed Miliband with the sandwich. But by the way, the Ed Miliband sandwich was fed to him by Christo Fufas's dad.
That's great choice. But top tip for any budding political advisors out there: drinking on camera, fine; eating on camera, nigh on impossible.
Don't do it.
I've never, even the best can't pull it off.
By the way, we were talking about people who were childless. I mean, when's Jeremy Clarkson's due? I mean, that is a beer gut, isn't it?
Yeah, but he owns a pub, doesn't he? If I owned a pub, I'd hope to look like that.
Yeah, he's only just bought it though. That's the thing.
I mean, if I was Clarkson, I wouldn't have said I wouldn't have told Keir, because we had that famous footage of him being booted out.
I was literally just about to bring that.
And I would love to see Clarkson do that.
Do we know if that guy was a landlord or just a very
I think he was the landlord. I'm pretty sure he was the landlord.
But again,
wouldn't that be great if you saw Jeremy Clarkson telling Keir to get out of his pub?
Yeah, can I just say, the greatest bit of I think it was in Bristol, wasn't it, where the landlord had to go. He thought he was going to take out one of his security guards who was 4 times the size of him. Ridiculous. I was like, come on, mate, you might have had a few too many at this point.
It was in Bath, but I have to say, the one question that I would ask Jeremy Clarkson, he might not take it that well, can you order a steak at midnight in your pub? Because otherwise it might result in violence.
Well, this brings us on as to why he's been banned. And this is actually because Keir Starmer has really done nothing for the rural communities and farming. In the Labour manifesto, only 87 words were put to farming for an industry that's worth 13.6 billion.
Incredible.
It's absolutely staggering. Just one second. The Clarkson in the interview with Cathy Newman on Times Radio, I did listen to it, but he made a really interesting fact that I thought he was saying that if he reared a pig, took it to slaughter, butcher, and one sausage he could have to buy back for 74p when he could import one for 18p.
Yeah.
Incredible.
That is
staggering stuff.
Yeah, but one thing I love about the pub is
how much do you normally pay for sausage?
Now, darling, let's not go that far.
Depends what time of the week it is.
Yeah, depends when rent's due. But one other thing I like about the pub is it's actually a cooperative. So it's all local British products. It's all within the kind of area that the pub is in, and I think this is a real kind of driver, because I know a lot of people that do like buying British. It's a big thing. I think it's a great idea.
I don't know. I've given this fact out many times. But not only am I a shareholder in my local pub, but I'm also part owner of both local breweries. I'll tell you what, I've been boosting the profits. So when they go, you must have shares in this pub. I literally do.
Would you let Starmer in?
Do you know what? I'm not a big fan on this sort of banning people, shouting
I agree with you
and all
on
that sort of thing. I mean, I've railed on previous occasions about the milkshaking of politicians.
Oh,
I appreciate banning from pubs is slightly different, but my view is, if I was the manager of the pub that I part own, I would turn around and say, look, if a politician wants to come in and talk to the punters, it's not for us to say that they can't do it.
Yeah.
Although, to be fair, there is a bit of background with Jeremy Clarkson, because I think those Clarkson Farm actually is probably, Series 2 was the most important piece of work on local government that I've seen on British television. And I think Series 3 is about, all of it's about farming.
Yeah, it is. I would say that show has done more for farming than Countryfile has for about 20 years.
Countryfile's crap, isn't it?
Yeah. Countryfile, that's when it's like time to like get ready for bed. Like on a Sunday.
It's on at 7.
All right, I'm old. Leave me alone.
It's on at 7 o'clock. It's time for bed now.
Yeah, you can start getting ready.
Get your Jim Jams, watch some lambing.
I check my emails for the next day for myself.
So I've got to warn you, the producer's saying in my ear, please don't talk about Countryfile.
Not again.
Not again.
That is one way to lose the entire audience. Yeah. OK, so who has Jeremy Clarkson banned from his pub?
Probably among others, but on this occasion, Keir Starmer.
It is absolutely correct. OK, so to Pete, teachers across Britain have been told to challenge what in classrooms?
Whiteness, because apparently we're all big bad people.
Are you a big bad person?
Well, apparently, I've got privilege and all the rest of it. I find the
You've been taught in schools?
Yeah, it's been actively put forward, both in England and Wales and in Scotland, now that there is guidance coming out for teachers to challenge the concepts of whiteness, perceived superiority, and all this kind of absolute bunk.
What happened?
Drivel, isn't it? It's drivel.
But
I go further. I think it's incredibly nefarious. I think it is done to undermine British society, British values.
What happens? I always think it's worth subtracting the word and putting in the word black, right? Because that's always quite a good benchmark. What would happen if the Department for Education issued guidance to warn children that black culture is damaging for Britain?
OK, well, let's just use China's warning to tourists, Chinese tourists. They actually said something about this. They said, don't go to London. There's black people, there's Indian people, and they'll stab you, right?
Yep.
Their people went nuts over that.
Yes.
I mean, we're talking about different but similar things. As soon as you change that word, as you said, Andre, people will lose their marbles over it. But this is the problem. White people in this country are the vast majority still, and Scotland's the same. We obviously saw the white attack by, what's his name? Good old, I forgot his name now. God, he's so irrelevant. What's the old SNP guys? What was his name again?
Hamza Yusuf.
Hamza Useless.
How do you know that?
And this. Sorry, I just pure blank. I went white. So this attack on white people in the country
do you know there was a
various.
newspaper in the United States of America that said Manchester, a notorious gay area just outside London.
Yeah.
Notorious gay area.
Go down.
There you go.
Some of them just don't get it right.
I mean, I think this is, again, it's part of the reason why white British people feel so let down. They feel shunned. They feel forgotten about by Tories as well. The Tories are guilty of this, and now Labour are going to take another step.
James, look, we appreciate you coming on. You're not a massive lefty. You're kind of a bit in the middle. Look, I mean, a lot of this is an attempt to make people feel welcome, even though they don't have a background in Britain. You watch all of this about, putting black people into period dramas to kind of invent a black history in Britain that doesn't exist. But, I mean, it's gone too far, a lot of this stuff, hasn't it? To literally start telling young people that they were born evil because they're white.
Well, look, I mean, I doubt that's what the educational guidance is coming. But I mean, it's not. I mean, but look, you have to have a debate. You've got to have a debate on at least something approaching truth, because saying to white kids they're born evil is obviously wrong, but that's not actually what anyone's doing, is it? Now, I suspect a lot of these things start out, they're pretty well-intentioned, then they get put through the machine, and then they get reported, and we end up having a debate about whether white kids in schools are being told that they're evil. I don't see how that helps anyone. To be honest, so I find the whole thing a bit ridiculous. But if you ask me to make a conclusion, it would be that we all need to. Like, I speak as someone who's white British. I don't particularly feel ignored or
white
let,
British.
yeah. Let me shock you.
No. He's anyone who's ginger, and you are a little bit, as the pub landlord said, we are the Aborigines of Britain. Right? We were here first. You lot with your darker hair, you're all Romans and stuff. We were here first. We were the wild men of the hills, weren't we?
Yeah. Well, I'm of Irish descent, so I suppose I'm from the Celtics.
Can I just pick something up there? Because this actually falls under what they call anti-racism. So they don't use blackness or whiteness. They use anti-racism, which is more of a political kind of persuasion to have. Under the guidance itself, it has pushed for a greater education in the British involvement in the slave trade. How is that not really focusing on the negative aspects of British history and kind of teaching that we were the evil ones in history, rather than having a balanced approach?
What annoys me about the whole slave thing, the reason why slavery is so debated is because we abolished it in British territories. The reality is there are slave markets all over Africa.
They still exist today, and there's more slaves today than there ever has been. And they want to completely ignore this point because guess where most of that slavery is coming from? It's still in Africa and it's in the Middle East. And they don't want to talk about that because that would be racist.
Yes, absolutely right. OK, so to Pete.
Yes.
What have teachers been taught to tell kids is bad in schools?
Whiteness.
Is absolutely correct. So on to Alex. OK. The founder of the Telegram app is now facing how many years in prison after being arrested in France?
You know, I don't actually know how many years it is, but this whole story really shocked me because we're seeing freedom of speech in the UK being attacked quite a lot, like people being locked up for memes and hurty words online. But this seems to be happening all over the world.
Vladimir Putin accused the French of having political prisoners.
Well, Vladimir Putin has put a statement out to the rest of Europe and said, if you want to come and flee your countries, come to us. We'll look after you, which is absolutely bonkers to
well,
think
hang on.
But this is...
It's just always worth having that in the back pocket, just in case.
Just in case you need it.
Really
you put a spicy meme up, get on a flight to Russia.
What was the name of the leaker who fled to Russia? They gave him political...
Snowden.
They gave him political refuge.
But of course that works for propaganda reasons for Russia. We've got to be careful because Russia's pretty guilty of
I'm not condoning it. I'm saying they have done it before.
It just
I
seems to be
had a friend
everywhere.
of mine who had an argument with a Russian who going, Russia is better than Britain, Russia is great. And he goes, listen, how many people make £1 billion in Scottish oil and gas and move to Moscow? Let's just be clear. Right, that's just the only person who's ever defected is like Gerard Depardieu, and he was, let's be clear, the definition of spent.
But we also saw the CEO of Rumble put out a statement. Rumble's also quite a big free speech platform, and he said he's left Europe. He's fled Europe because he's fearful that he'll be next. And as someone put out this brilliant meme online, they showed the guy who created the Bic pen said they've arrested the guy who made the Bic pen because his pens have been used by terrorists all over the world to conduct their work, and it's the same thing.
I've got to be honest with you. The moment that I realised that WhatsApp was not secure was when MI5 said, oh my God, any terrorist using WhatsApp, we can't read what they're saying. I mean, why would you publicly admit that if it was true?
So this was really why Telegram was created. It was to actually keep proper end-to-end encryption and to keep it actually out of the hands of government intervention. What he's actually...
But actually, sorry, just to say this, Pete, which is the weird bit about it. Telegram has been a game changer for Ukraine.
Yes.
Right. Russia is one of the biggest losers from end-to-end encryption. France, on the other hand, I mean, I don't understand why they care.
So there is also this thing that Telegram is used by far-right groups quite significantly. And I have a feeling that this might have something to do with the EU putting pressure on the French government because this individual, Pavel Duval, I think his name is French-Russian. So he can be arrested on French soil. So he's playing accidentally, and I use that loosely, do not sue me, landed in Azerbaijan, which recognises the extradition treaties and all that kind of thing. So this seems to be somewhat of an accident. But
I'll tell you one thing that's amazing. There can't be many topical quiz shows where the subject of Azerbaijan international relations comes up twice.
Twice. And I have to admit, it's always
most people are going, what?
Yeah, but so he's been charged in relation to not adequately moderating Telegram over drug trafficking, far-right, extreme political extremism, terrorism, all this kind of thing. I think this is a shot across the bow to people like Elon Musk.
I agree.
From the European Union and from
Thierry Breton.
Those kind of people and organisations for. Like, don't come after us on this, or we're coming for you. I'm not a tinfoil hat, WF conspiracist. You are one of those people. Please get a life.
Well, there is no doubt that Elon Musk is goading these people in Western governments that want to regulate the internet.
But he's goading them for the right reasons, because he's exposing them by goading them.
Yes.
I mean, it's impossible to lock up a man with that much money, in my opinion. I think it'd be impossible, and the outcry, I think I'd love to see them take.
Well, they tried it with El Chapo. He just dug a tunnel.
That's true. That's true.
I find it interesting. I mean, I think it was the Tucker Carlson interview with Putin. Putin said that Elon Musk was the most dangerous man in the world because he is literally untouchable because he's that rich.
Yes, and
I was like, well, you worth a few bob or two, ever being brutally honest.
But you might as well lock up me. What happens if I'm a terrorist and I send a letter by Royal Mail? Do I lock up the CEO of Royal Mail? No, we don't. So this is the ridiculous part of it, right? They want to control, they want access, they want back-end access, and that's what they'll be trying to barter for. But behind the closed doors, you want your freedom, give us back-end access to Telegram. And I think it's totally nefarious.
We have previously talked, James, about the situation in Burma, where Facebook had no moderators who could speak Burmese. And as a result, memes were circulating Burma, making allegations against the Muslim minority that were simply and demonstrably untrue. That resulted in actual genocide where tens of thousands of people were murdered. So, look, I'm not on the side of the French authorities, but there have been occasions when some of the filth that is allowed to propagate on these channels does cause real harm.
I agree. And look, I think it sounds to me, and I don't know particularly a lot about this individual guy, but it sounds a bit heavy-handed to just arrest the CEO for, in one country in France. But what you have touched on is the very real point. Now, I think all of us on this panel could probably agree that we want to see freedom of speech defended. But what we've created in the internet, and particularly in social media platforms, are things that we, as individual national governments, basically can't control.
Yes.
And yet we want them. I think there's also stuff that we'd all agree has no place to be put on social media. I'm talking terrorist content. I'm talking about stuff, abuse of children. I'm talking about the stuff you're talking about in Burma. I think we'd all agree that we don't want those on there. So we're asking them to take that off in real time. So we're asking them to do an awful lot while still restricting freedom of speech.
But the other slight problem, James, is this. And this is where I think it becomes very difficult, because what laws do you enforce? Do you say, right, we are going to hand over the names of people on gay chat groups on Facebook to the Iranian authorities?
Exactly. You make exactly the right point, because we would all think that was a terrible thing, and that's when national government shouldn't just have their own say-so.
But then it's in the homes of Iran, and Iran is a sovereign country.
Yeah, agreed. But so what I'm saying to you is the only solution to it, and it's very, very complex, it has to be an international thing. We have to, as an international
New world order.
Well, no, but seriously, how else are you going to govern it and get them to do what you want them to do?
Mark
Zuckerberg
came out today and he said, openly stated that the White House had pressurised him to censor COVID-19 posts on Facebook.
Yes.
Right? That is a breach of the First Amendment. That's almost treasonous, right?
Yeah.
And so we've got to this is in the constitution of the entire country. You have the right.
Well, look, it's all very easy for each of us to say one thing that we don't like about how they've restricted access to it.
Thing.
No, agree. But we all agree. Everyone agrees that something shouldn't be up there. Everyone agrees that something should be up there.
Yeah.
So where you draw the line is a matter of fact.
But there's also a point of saying what part of this is governed, what part of this is us led, right? What part of this is led by people. One of the great things about Twitter, X should I say, is community notes. People go on there and they say if you've got something wrong, they will note it. And I guarantee you on the left and the right, it does happen. And that's a really beautiful thing. There's always some truth.
I will say, look, I'm a free speech advocate, but if you were a victim of child sex abuse, I don't want to end on a low note, but if you're a victim of child sex abuse and then suddenly you discovered 500,000 people had videos of it, I mean, that would be soul destroying.
Of course it would. This is really obvious, because we already have laws on the books that govern this stuff.
We do.
True.
The problem
but they're different from country to country.
They're different. I actually am more on your side of the argument that we do need some international cooperation on this issue. But what I will say is the problem is governments introducing more legislation and more laws that are not designed to talk about terrorism. They're not designed to talk about about child exploitation. They're designed to restrict particular phrases over in identities and all the rest of it. That is my bigger problem with what we're seeing.
A strong warning to the left that this will be weaponised against them one day if they don't back down on it.
100%.
Okay, so we're going to the final question. Was to you. Sorry. So we changed the running order, right? So the final question is to Alex. How many years in prison has the founder of Telegram been threatened with?
I believe it's 20.
It's 20. Okay. Unfortunately, we didn't have time to talk about Hulk Hogan threatening to body slam Kamala Harris, which was a real shame. Also, Pete has had a bad week because you had an infection. You're in hospital. We missed you last week. That makes you the winner. And so congratulations to Pete Barnes. Thank you so much to James McGrory, who everyone calls Rory McGrory, and indeed to Alex Armstrong, who most people get confused with a TV presenter of a similar name. Until next time, goodbye.